and welcome to another episode of Saturday Night Shrinking. I'm your host, Amora Sun, and today I am lucky enough to be interviewing another wonderful cast member of our production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, directed and executive produced by Janani Srinivasan. Her name is Genesis Taina Luciano, as well as her good friend Ellison Estwick. And today, we're just going to explore some of the multidimensional facets of what it is to be a mechanical man, a fairy, and also the moon in A Midsummer Night's Dream. So, Genesis, you were telling me earlier that you're not typically attracted to Shakespearean productions. But yeah, what kind of works are you more into, and what made you apply for this production?
I am really interested in new works, specifically by BIPOC creatives. I want to be in new plays. I want to produce new plays. I want to write new plays. I just want to be a part of all that. I just want to be a part of that scene. I auditioned for this play because I wanted a job. And I've done a little bit of Shakespeare before. I recently just did The Merry Wives of Windsor as Mistress Page. And so I have some experience in that. And I'm really grateful for this production. It is a mostly BIPOC cast with a BIPOC director. And I love the vision of the story. And I feel like we've done a good job revamping it, making it funny. And I'm enjoying being part of this production.
Yeah, it's awesome to see this new, well, it's not really a new take, but it's just a more nuanced and colorful take on a very antiquated tale. And what's been your experience like working with the choreographer and integrating Indian dance into a production like this?
It's been amazing. I love doing the dances, and I love working with Jivaka, our choreographer. I've never done Indian classical dance before. I have a dance minor, and I've been dancing my whole life. And so I've usually done more contemporary, modern, or Latin, salsa, hip-hop, but I've never experimented with Indian classical before, and it was really fun, and there were a lot of challenging parts, but that just made it more enjoyable for me as a dancer.
I know that you are the only native New Yorker in our entire cast, yes, which stuns me.
I know.
So from your perspective, as a professional creative who's like coming into her own and doing more and more works, what do you notice are some of the differences or some of the similarities between someone who was, born, raised, trained in the city versus people that are coming from outside of it?
That's an interesting question. I would say the biggest difference is definitely the accent, comes through with whatever they do. I think one of the reasons I have been good at doing Shakespeare is because I can do it and keep the rhythm of a New Yorker while doing iambic pentameter. And yeah, I think that's really special. I think there's a way New Yorkers carry themselves. There's a creativeness that comes from New York, and it reflects in your style and your hair and the way you talk and the way you move. And I love seeing that.
Absolutely. And as an outsider who's relatively new to the city, I would say that there is a certain charisma and a real passion and openness and bravery that comes with being a native New Yorker that I find fascinating. So would you like to comment on any of what we already explored, Ellison?
I'm actually curious, can you speak more about, the bravery and the charisma aspect of native New York? I'm just curious.
Yes. Before I answer that question, are you also a native New Yorker?
Oh, yes. Born and raised, Harlem, Washington Heights area.
There you go. Okay. So my observations. So my background is that of a psychologist. But before I was a psychologist, I had this huge interest in anthropology. I never majored in anthropology in school, but I took a couple courses here and there. And New York, one of the reasons why I wanted to move here so much is it's such a rich little microcosm of the globe. So you think of Washington as a microcosm of the United States because all of your political decisions are made there. You have all these representatives, all these delegates going there for various political campaigns. But New York has this global context. It's so rich with immigrants. It's so rich with the legacy of those immigrants trying to make it work and figuring out how to thrive. And it gives me chills because as someone who loves to study people, it's it's quite enlivening to see the contrasts of experience in one small place, like stacked on top of each other, and what you learn from each other, how to integrate the conflict resolution that comes from this kind of, yeah, openness and acceptance in order to be that kind. Not necessarily nice, but kind.
That definitely is hitting it. So just a little bit more information about me. I did undergrad at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And I feel like D.C. Is a very different type of city than New York, and I wasn't expecting that. I was like, oh, okay, there's gonna be a subway. The people are gonna be the same. You know, I'm used to that New York grit that a lot of that we're so well known for. And when I got to D.C., it was really interesting to see how it was kind of like a little northern and a little southern at the same time, and then also going to a HBCU and experiencing other Black people from across, well, really from across the world, and how different ideologically we all were. It was a little jarring because a lot of my fellow students, they hadn't experienced as many cultures as I had growing up in New York City. They hadn't experienced, just in terms of, most of them were shocked that I would even want to walk around the city. They deem cities as unsafe, and also the idea of not driving everywhere was absolutely insane to them. I told one friend I was going to Target, and she was just like, "You're driving there?" And I was like, "No, it's a 20-minute walk." And she gasped and jumped back because it was just too out of bounds for her. But it really made me grateful for a new type of city experience when I went to DC, and then when I came home, really made me grateful for just growing up in this place and being able to continue to grow as now an adult in this place. And then specifically in terms of being an artist and a creative, I think that a lot of new artists and a lot of new creatives, when they come to New York City, they're very, oh, if we can make it here, we can make it everywhere. There's like there's a difference. Not that we aren't hungry, because we definitely are, but it's a difference in the type of hunger in which making it to the city is already the first step for them, versus for us, I would say, it's like, you know, we're desensitized to the glitz and glam of living here all our lives.
Most New Yorkers hate Times Square because of that, and
Absolutely.
most tourists run to Times Square. I wanted to go back to what you said about New Yorkers being kind but not nice, because one of the things that I noticed about New Yorkers is this innate sense of community. And I personally hold community super like high on the list of priorities in my life. Like, I want to build community, I want to be a part of community. And I feel that way about New York, is like wherever you go, you can say you're from New York, and you might find someone else from New York. And it's like this home that you find within your borough and within your city and within other people in the city, just because you guys are both in the city, and that means you guys both want to achieve your goals.
You're definitely correct in that terms, kind but not nice. And recently I had to move, and I, of course, was moving public transportation because I don't drive. And I had so many things with me, and I remember I was putting something on a bus, and literally I put a shopping cart on a bus, and it rolled right off of the bus while I was going to get another piece of luggage. And this guy just came up, and he just put it back, and then he just walked away. He didn't even say anything to me. So it's that idea of like, I'm going to help you because I know someone else is going to help me, but we don't have to talk. We don't have to speak. We're very individually communal. And so the same way on the train, if we enter an agreement that I'm not going to bother you and you're not going to bother me, we're going to get to where we're going.
It's very enlightening and enlivening to be here. And I do also notice that as an immigrant, what you mentioned, Ellison, was that sometimes when you're not from the city, you get here and you want to take advantage quickly because you're not sure if you will be able to stay here, especially as an immigrant. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of scary things. If you're like second or third or fourth generation, I think it's nice you don't have to necessarily worry about that so much. But there's this feeling of I'm representing all of my local people being here, because I know that it's quite rare to be able to, be funded, be supported, be sponsored to come here. And at the same time, like when you were saying Native New Yorkers are somewhat desensitized to the glitz and glamour, I hear that, I get that in some ways. I feel that too. Like I can see through it a little bit. But at the same time, there's magic in the ability to connect with something. And so, okay, if I can shrink for a little bit, there's a connection between artistic vulnerability and sensitivity. And in New York, people pay professional artists for their vulnerability and sensitivity. If you get exploited for your sensitivity, that's when it can become very like soul sucking, soul draining. And that's when I think a lot of professional creatives can turn to substance abuse and things like that to just kind of wind down, to not take that kind of, like becoming a hack or like just doing things for money, not necessarily because it resonates with your artistic vision or integrity. And so I don't know, when you said the glitz and the glamour, I can understand, like I get that. That's just what it made me think of. So in terms of how you both are running your artistic careers, is there ways that you are not kind of falling prey to that, potential for exploitation or like dilution of your goals through that allure to attract tourists rather than really support the artistic talent that's so endemic to the city?
I would say I've noticed that in my writing, I have leaned into using vernacular that I'm comfortable with and that I use on a daily basis that wouldn't be appropriate for a film class. Like I took the way I talk and I use slang and I have an accent and I include that in my writing because it's who I am and it's how I speak and it's how I speak to my friends and it's how my friends speak to me. But when other professionals read my writing sometimes, they're like, can you change that? Can that not be that way? And it's like, no, I want it to be that way because that's the way I talk and that's the way so many other people talk. And this is our real life.
Yeah. How about for you?
I would say for me, it's maintaining that creative aspect while also trying to enter the corporate side of media and entertainment. So knowing that while you're interning or in these fellowships, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. You're taking the jobs and you're doing the things that nobody else wants to, and that's because that's how the system is set up. And in some ways, I do feel very grateful for the positions that I have had and the opportunities that I've had, but at the same time, it's very like, okay, you get, again, desensitized to being in the moment. So having to remember the fact that like, oh, you're young, you're creative, you have probably the most free time that you're probably going to have for a long time before you progress further in your career. It's remembering that and taking that into account, making sure that you're having free time to write, to watch other forms of media and other people's creations, going out in the city and trying to watch other people's plays and getting inspired from it. It's a very difficult thing to balance while also balancing your mental health and your regular responsibilities and also remembering the fact that this is one of the most expensive cities in the world. And so you have to keep your job and stay paid.
One of the ways I try to like keep going and like not sell out, as you said, is like pouring into my community and letting them pour into me, like working with people I've worked with before, creating relationships like that, getting people who I've never worked with before to come on new projects with me and things like that so that we can all grow together and we can uplift each other.
Yeah, I think that's really good practice.
Also remembering that, especially in terms of entertainment, how cutthroat this industry is, it feels very difficult to try to make relationships because you don't know necessarily if someone wants to make a relationship with you because they value you and your work and your relationship, or they want to get ahead and use you as a stepping stone. And so I think for me, a struggle that I have had is networking and trying to talk to people without feeling like, oh, I'm using you for something, even though I just want to talk about movies. I love movies. I love TV shows. I just want to talk about what you like about stuff, and then we can go back and forth and get lost in that conversation. And I think something that's really important is making sure that we're talking to people not only on the level above us, but around us. And I think that also helps remind